Prague and yeah.
I think statistically, Prague is maybe one of the most technical players among these players. Uh, in a way, it is a bit similar to Magnus, right? So that is one of the reasons why Magnus relates a lot to them, and maybe he likes him the most among the Indian juniors. So style is a little more technical. And Arjun's and Mukesh, they have a lot of confidence and they try to make a lot of things happen on the board. So Arjun has crazy open preparation and excellent calculation skills. He's fast, and Mukesh is also very deep in his calculation. Um, and yeah, there's a lot of element of confidence in his play, which is probably one of the reasons why there are a lot of ups and downs in his play. So that when he's really confident, he plays the same way, but he pulls off things. But when his confidence is impacted a bit, then there are also big drops in his play. Like yesterday against Arjun also, I think confidence played a major role. When you're down in confidence, you're constantly rechecking your moves. You're taking a lot longer to take the decision that you would normally do it in a much faster way. And that contributed to him being low on time. And as a consequence, when he needed that time to make some critical decisions, he just didn't have.
So we can safely say that Mukesh is maybe on calculation.
Whereas Arjun is probably more in the mode of someone like a Castro with a lot of opening preparation. And Arjun and Mukesh are a bit similar that way.
So it also boils down to how they were trained when they were young, right? How they were brought up. Like, let's say Mukesh, for example, did all of his by himself, not with a lot of assistance. But let's say Arjun by himself. So they were playing a lot of online chess or blitz, bullet, things like that, which also shaped their eating schedules. Is that accurate?
It's actually a bit hard to say how much was shaped by their formative years. Of course, it plays a role. There's no question about it. But how much of a role it plays, I think it depends because uh, when we took a past during the pandemic, they all had certain strengths and weaknesses. So Prab was not the person who was, I think, the most technical at the time. It was Nihal who had a more technical side. But during the pandemic in 2020, 21, when they played a lot of these online tournaments, I saw a lot of transformation taking place in their styles, and they evolved into some of the areas where they were not so good at became their strengths. So imagine like in cricket there's a player who has a short ball weakness and then suddenly he's pulling everything perfectly. It was something like that. So I'm not entirely sure how much of a role was played by formative years. But technology and changing times have played a role in all their uh, how the games are shaped. Like there used to be a thing that you had to learn certain classics, you had to see certain games. That's no longer the case. All of them don't know a lot of important games from the past. All of them have learned by playing online. All of them are pretty decent at playing fast. And they were learning from stockfish as opposed to the classics. So basically, you get the input of moves from some source or another. Once upon a time, that used to be from books, it used to be from bulletins. You had to see what other people did. But with the computer coming and then the internet happening, with the computer becoming stronger, you could learn from stockfish. And with the internet, you could practice a lot with other stronger humans. And the geography stopped becoming a barrier for someone getting good at chess. So all of them are shaped a bit by that.
You spoke about geography not being that intervention. But we are seeing that Chennai is basically the nerve center of chess. We have that have some tie to this. Where it may
Main motive. With some ties to Chennai, the main motive.
So, how did why did Chennai become the nerve center? I know obviously Anand and influence was there, but otherwise, how did that happen? And how many chess academies would you say? Just a rough estimate. I know very hard.
I think definitely more than 100. There's so many. I think minimum would be 100, but I don't know what the highest is. But it comes down to simply, firstly, more people playing chess in Chennai. And if we talk about why more people play chess in Chennai, why we have a bigger pyramid base, I think that is down to how we perceive it out here. Chess is seen in a very positive light. It's seen as something intellectual. It's something that parents are happy for kids to play apart from their academics. I think there's by and large a much more positive perception for chess in Chennai than in some of the other regions in India. So I think that plays a key role where a parent would say, leave all these things and study. That happens a lot less in Chennai in comparison to, the more northern parts of India. And since we have a bigger number, so the higher number of talents that come out, and also everything gets connected from that, right? You have bigger base, more talents, more top tier talents, more top tier talents competing with each other from a very young age, and that competition makes them better and better, and that leads to a higher output of top players. But having said that, I think it is getting better in terms of distribution. Whereas once upon a time, uh, barely one player wouldn't be able to speak Tamil in the 18 out of 5. Now it's more distributed, right? We have Arjun, we have Prat and Mukesh, but then we have Arjun with it, and Nihal, for instance, all of them from different states other than Tamil Nadu.
Going to the Olympiad, then, when does your role effectively begin? So, for example, we know that Mukesh is going through a confidence slump. Are you playing any kind of role in, because he's going to play a big part at the Olympiad and
Right.
want to win that. So, are you already?
As of now, not yet, but I am waiting to have a chat with him at the end of the tournament. Not quite actively at the moment, but at this point we are already, in the initial process of planning training camps, and if not training camps, at least coming together, finding a way to come together, have some kind of a Zoom call together with the team. That initial planning phase begins at around this time, about 2 to 3 months prior to the Olympiad, and then then we just go to the tournament.
Is there a sense of responsibility now? Because the Olympiad is the only tournament he's going to play now before the World Championships.
Right.
So is there like a sense of responsibility saying now we are the only option that we are the ones who have to bring his confidence back up before the biggest game in chess?
I haven't thought of it that way, to be honest. But I have thought of it as a point that can really bring back his confidence, because I feel confidence is something which can change in a game or two. Everyone has gone through such slumps in their career. Everyone has had a bad phase, and it can change. And if it changes, I feel Mukesh should be a completely different player. I can cite examples where I've seen Mukesh struggling personally. One such instance was during the Asian Games in China, where I was also the captain of the team. And Mukesh had a horrid tournament. So we fell from somewhere around 27-50 to below 27-30, lost 20-30 points. But then immediately I saw him perform much better in the upcoming tournaments. Later he won the Chennai GM, and he ended up winning the candidate. So there was a massive spike in his level of play. So I do believe that confidence can change like this. It could have been, for instance, even yesterday's game against Arjun if things had just gone a little more in Mukesh's way. But it can change, and I feel there is a potential chance of that happening in the Olympiad, because unlike these close tournaments which Mukesh has been playing, where every player is about 2650 or 2700, Olympiad in general is more like an open tournament, something which Mukesh hasn't played in a long time. But that was where he built his initial successes. So that could be the tournament where there's a shift in momentum.
Can you tell us a little bit about how these training camps work? Because for us, the perception is that these are all like very strong players. What do you even teach them? Teaching obviously maybe does not happen. Then what happens in these training camps? How are you very strong?
So that depends from time to time. In 2022, we had some very intense training camps where we were all working in a model which is a bit similar to how people train for tournaments like candidate world championship match. All of us were working long hours on openings, and to be honest, that didn't quite work for the Olympiad, because it felt like a bit of an overtraining. and a lot of it didn't actually happen in the Olympiad. So now, in general, the idea is to just have a good time together with the unit, and I think that's pretty much is all that's required for a team like this in the Olympiad. Just come together, have a good time with each other, and I think that helps a lot in creating a positive feelings around the team. And in general, I do find a correlation that when you feel better, when you feel happy, you play better. And when you're not feeling great, it also affects your performance the other way.
So, as compared to 2022, where you said maybe there was overtraining, intense training camps, what was the camp for 2024?
So 2024, we actually didn't have any camp. Everyone's calendar was crazy. So we didn't have a camp before that. All we had was a Zoom call together.
So that's a secret for success in a sense, I guess.
It can help, definitely. Sometimes the best thing to do is not do anything. So that's very well, that could very well be the case.
But then the understanding when to do and when not to do it.
Yeah, definitely. It's not always, it's not a one-stop solution for every scenario. And sometimes also it can be that the entire team is not able to train together, but part poor is available, poor needs a bit of training. It can also be something like that.
Generally, what kind of signals you use before you decide whether to interfere or not?
So if I see that everything is going well, then that's a clear signal not to interfere. But if I see some problems that can be issued, that can be addressed, then in those cases I step in, I engage and try and work around how we can solve the problem.
So just to confirm, the squad is Mukesh, Prat, Nihal.
It should be according to the rating average, but I haven't received the official confirmation from the federation. But yeah.
But the players have shown their ability.
The players have confirmed their availability too.
So let's see, sir. Who have confirmed their
Yeah.
You interestingly said that there is no need for the classics, but a lot of people believe no need to really know and study the classics. A lot of players believe one of the reasons why Carlsen is so strong is because he's learned the classics. So
it's not true actually. The reason why Carlsen is so strong is something that none of us have figured out, including Carlsen. Because we just naturally had certain things. He was just naturally so gifted. Something's just comes to him automatically. When he sees something, he just knows where the pieces fit into faster than it is for anyone else. And even now, with so many changes, with so many youngsters coming up, this ability of Carlsen is still, it still reigns supreme. So the part about the classics is it's quite simple, right? Whether you're, let's say, you have to read to improve your English, but whether you are reading something from a 1930s journal or you're reading it from a ChatGPT generated paragraph, you're basically getting the same output, right? It doesn't change where your input is. What input you're getting doesn't change. Just the source changes, and you have a whole new variety of options for learning in 2026 as opposed to 1960 or 1970 or even 2000. So the learning methods which people used in those times have definitely become outdated. It was less accessible times, so that was the best available thing at that time. But now with so much more things to access, there are numerous other ways you can learn.
And those kind of learnings obviously help you in the real chess.
Yeah, it helps a lot because again it's the same. You get the same input of pattern recognition. So here there's chess moves. If you're learning English, then those are words and paragraphs, and you see how sentences get formed. But the learning process is the same.
Just about this topic, it was 10 last year, master results, 8 this year, master results. Particular reason was that related to the change of government in Tamil Nadu?
So we moved to a private sponsor already by last year. And so that it's not due to the government. But yeah, one of the reasons was player availability. So one thing was we did want to have a stronger field. I'm not sure if stronger is the exact word, but in terms of rating, yes, stronger and also players with some of the most followed players in the world. And there was a shift towards that this year. And when you're talking about that, it starts from the very top, right? People like Magnus and Karu and Fabiano. So we tried to get players of the highest caliber this time. We're a bit more ambitious. And there is St. Louis and there is St. Field and the GCD final next month. So a lot of players were not able to play this tournament due to that reason, that they have immediate tournaments coming up. There's also the USA Uzbekistan match right after this. So that was one of the reasons why a lot of these players couldn't come. So at the end, we just decided to go with 8 players.
You made a call to Magnus.
Yeah, we didn't reach out to Magnus. We reached out to all the best players in the world from number 1.
What do you think of the 45-minute fast classical for the World Championship that we counted as a standard rating? So is it a real possibility that Magnus will cross 2 minutes?
No, I think there's no chance of that happening because there's a worldwide rating deflation. Everyone has been losing rating without losing the strength. So because of that, I just don't see how Magnus can cross 2900 in classical. His rating has already fallen quite a bit from 2850s to around 2820, 2830. But yeah, at 2900 is a long way, unless no similar inflation happens to compensate for the deflation.
Can you talk about this deflation scenario? What is exactly how it happens? What it manifests? You made a very definitive statement.
So I don't know exactly. So deflation happens. So basically, rating system is dependent on the pool of players you play with, and each country has, let's say, a pool of players. Imagine if, let's say, we have a pool where there is Arjun, Gukesh, Prak, and Nihal, and all of them are 2600. In a pool like this, if they just continue to play each other, none of them are ever going to reach 2700 because they're playing the same pool. But imagine if they're playing these players of a similar strength, and someone outside is playing a similar pool of strength of players at 2750. Then these players at 2600 who are stuck in this underrated pool, when they play against the 2750s, one is going to gain rating and the other is going to lose rating. So this is effectively what happens in youth level events. There are many countries which have an underrated pool. India, I think Uzbekistan, Armenia. A lot of these countries have an underrated pool, and in general, the European pool is, in relation to these underrated pools, they are overrated. And when Indians just keep playing each other, for instance, in India, naturally their rating doesn't increase. So that is why we play a lot of tournaments in Europe. And it's the same with, for instance, the Russian players post the Russia-Ukraine war. When they stop playing tournaments outside of Russia, they become a very underrated pool. You have players like Grishchuk, Artemiev, and a lot of top players over 2750. They have dropped below 2650. And then when these players go out and play in other countries, everyone's rating gets pulled down. So I'm not entirely sure what is the mathematics, why does a deflation happen? But the average ratings have gone down considerably amongst all the rating groups in basically the post-pandemic. And initially, one of the rules that contributed towards deflation was also the FIDE rule that you cannot gain more than 0.8 points. You cannot gain rating when you're playing more than one player below 400 points, against whom you gain 0.8 points. So this ended up creating a scenario where if you win, you gain 0.0, but if you draw or lose, you lose rating. So if you're playing against a pool of players below 400 points in 50 or 100 games, you can be sure to lose rating. And these are underrated players who can make a draw, who can beat you, won't be able to score 100 or 100. So that was one of the factors. And then later this rule was rescinded sometime in 2024, but already by then quite a bit of deflation had taken place. And aside from that, yeah, there's a lot of mathematics behind it, but in general, people are using a lot more rating on average than they did in the past.
Is it also to do with activity? In a sense, the aura seems to play a lot against each other, very strong players. There is no more aura, that, and players also using, unlike say 10, 15 years ago, where there was no such activity, not many these different types of roles. So in a sense, the even psychological gap between the players is.
No, that is certainly that happened due to internet. Whereas in the 90s or 80s, if you got an opportunity to play against Karpo or Caspo, you were so intimidated as an average grandmaster, right? And people, even when they got into good situations, the intimidation, the lack of self-belief would play a role, and it would take a lot of games to catch up on their self-belief. By that time, they had worked on your style, and they have already have a psychological dominance, so that used to be a factor. Now, in already by 2014-15, these players were up and coming. Nihal and Agiriza were able to play against players like Magnus and Hikaru and beat them. Like initially they would win 1 out of 20 games and then 1 out of 10. And over a period it became pretty close to 5-5. So that played a major role in not being overawed by the top players. And during the pandemic, this happened across all levels because everyone was forced to play online. Online, a lot of players were able to, a lot of lower rated players were able to beat the higher rated players and realize that they are also human, they also make mistakes. And that certainly helped a lot in breaking that order.
So you spoke about technology. I was wondering if you could tell us about how chess players use engines these days, especially the younger ones.
I think it's the same thing. That the last 10 years in the sense that so engines have grown so infinitely stronger than humans that you have to pretty much accept their advice. You know, debate the engine, which was possible until around 2008, 2010. You used to make the most engine would give an evaluation, but you had to evaluate on your own because engines would be way off in their evaluations. But those times are very, very long past, and once Stockfish came in and Stockfish became quite strong, it has been considerably superior to humans. But uh, what people have also realized is there is a massive difference between the world of Stockfish, the world of engines, and the chess they play, and the chess that we humans play. There is a lot of irrelevance in that. So something that an evaluation that a Stockfish gives, you still have to interpret how easy or difficult it is for a human to find over the board, for your opponent to defend in those positions, how easy or difficult that task is. And it has also gone to a point where Stockfish gives a wide range of moves which are all equal. But for a human, they are not equally equal. For a human, the practical difference is still the same when you're playing over the board. So imagine the same engine shows, let's say, an advantage for white in 2010. The perception for a human is still similar over the board without the engine. Whereas a strong Stockfish engine now would see several moves apart and work it out that it's all going to be equal in the end. So they are all equal. So in that sense, a lot of these, there's a lot of work for humans to do, and there has not been more automation because of the strength of Stockfish. But I think more human element in being able to differentiate between what it generates.
So now, how does, let's say, a coach's role or a trainer's role change because of the use of engines?
It has, I think, it hasn't changed a whole lot. I think in the sense that your understanding, your human understanding, and what the transfer of knowledge, that part I think is very similar. So when you're working with a young kid, you see that they don't know so many things, and there is a way to shape that knowledge. There's a way to build the knowledge in such a way that they build their understanding. So that part, I think it remains more and more the same. And also at the top level, I think it's very similar. Perhaps what has changed is the amount of information to remember, which keeps increasing year by year. So also another thing which has changed in the last few years, especially post-pandemic, is you no longer have an advantage in the open if you're the stronger player. I think things have become a more equal level playing ground. Whereas, let's say we go to the times of Casper, the higher rated player had a clear advantage. First, you have to survive the first 10-15 moves. They had superior resources, they had better coaches, and they had a better understanding themselves. So, you had to first survive the opening and then get to the other parts. Um, that stayed across levels pre-pandemic, but post-pandemic, due to a massive amount of courses being published and so much more information being available, people have become so much better at openings, even at the grassroots level. So you can no longer rely on having that strength, that advantage as a higher rated player um, in the openings. And in a way, I feel it's good for the game that things have become a more equal level playing field, and you have to use more practical skills, practical speed of calculation. It's also no longer a place where you're aiming for perfection. Pre-computer times, we had this illusion that we could play a near perfect game. But people growing up in the generation, they understand that you can never compete with that computer level of perfection. So the fundamental aim has become completely different. And in a way, it has become more a sport, more of, who calculates faster, who sets, that problem for their opponent, and all those kind of things.
Okay. So most of them are using stockfish, right?
Yeah, everyone uses stockfish, I think.
That's
Unless there is a, customized engine that someone is building for themselves, which is
Yeah.
not for public consumption.
So because there was recently talk about the cost of consumption, cost of consumption data, and whether Reliance is giving any specific amount of money to Pragnanan for the use of basically nodes and that kind of thing. So that's why there is a bit of a intrigue.
To be honest, I don't think you gain much of an advantage in these things anymore because a very, very powerful hardware is available for a relatively low cost in today's times. Even for someone who's just starting out chess, and it's all so easily available and accessible. And the knowledge is also a lot more distributed now than it used to be in the past. So that level of hardware difference, it doesn't give so much of an advantage as it used to. And even if it does, memory is still limited. Your memory is still very limited. So now you just don't see games being decided on opening, right? You used to see that 20 years ago. Even in 2014, 2016 candidates, there were games which were decided right in the opening by one's opening preparation. You just don't see those things happening anymore because there's always a fight and people have to use their practical over-the-board skills more now.
From that 2022 that I was wondering if you had any players that stood out for you. All of these are, back then they were still untested for the world. They had been doing cricket, but then for the rest of the world, I think that 2022 was like a coming out party for Indian talent.
Right. Yeah.
So you'd seen them behind the scenes, work with them. Maybe any tales that stood out from that period?
I can't recall anything particular.
How long was the training camp?
We had lots of training camps. So we had one in May, at Olympiad here for both the teams. And I think that was about 2 weeks or so. And then we had one just before the Olympiad, which was again started as a 10-day camp. But we were so into it that we wanted to spend a few more days making it a 2-week camp. And we all went home for just a day or two before coming back to Chennai.
All of it was happening in Chennai.
Yeah, all of it was happening in Chennai.
Let's talk about this Olympiad a little more. What are, despite India being very strong, what are your concerns as a coach? As you head?
I think my concerns are the usual concerns. To be honest, even in 2024, we had a massive win. But before going to the tournament, I wasn't really sure if we were even going to win or win by such a big margin because you don't plan for such great things. I feel that when you have a amazing streak or let's say a hat trick, you don't plan for these things, right? You just do your things, and then suddenly other things have to fall in place for everything to come together and for these things to happen. So um, even in 2024, I felt that we had a fair shot, but by the first 3 rounds, I felt we had an indication that this team is going to look really good, and it's very unlikely that we won't end up winning the bowl. I feel this year also, the first 3 rounds is generally an indicator of how the form levels of the players are. Leading up to the Olympiad, of course, not all the players are in the best shape of their lives. That's clear. Uh, but I'm not reading that much into it because I feel Olympiad is a different ballgame, and it's not that the other teams are perfect. For instance, we have 4 2700s, but Uzbekistan has 2 2700s, and USA has been an 18 team for a while, and they're trying out a new combination. Uh, so every team has their own issues, and I feel we have pretty strong chances to do well in the Olympiad. But that's just the same as.
Let me tell you. Let me tell you my concerns. The sense that I feel that last time Arjun had a streak where he had won Swiss League events and was doing strong, was gaining rating and playing against a lot of lower rated players. But this bunch is largely playing among themselves compared to a couple of years back. So I'm not sure about how battle ready they are in terms of winning games against lower rated players in open top.
I think it hasn't been that long for them. Of course, they have played more top level events in recent times, but it hasn't been that long for them since they have played in opens. And secondly, it's not even like Arjun is going to play any different, right? Whether he's playing Abduswatro or a 2400, you saw him play F5, F4, G5, H5 against Abduswatro with black. It's not like he's playing Berlin and trying to make draws. See, that used to happen once upon a time that you reach the top level. And then you have to learn to play solidly. You have to learn not to lose against the best competition in the highest tournaments. But
So I'm talking about the strike rate against low rated because these, first 3 4 rounds, we winning against low rated players is going to give us the moment.
yeah, that's what. So the strike rate gets affected when you learn to become too solid, and then suddenly you're not able to create chances against players, right? But stylistically, if he's playing the same way, then he's going to end up playing the same way against an opposition who's not going to be as strong at resisting him. So in that sense, I don't think a lot changes. And it's the same with Prague also. See, he had to win 4 games in a row in Norway to win the tournament. And if you see, once upon a time, people had streaks. They went an entire year without losing a game in classical chess. They would go 50, 60 games. Losses when you reach a certain level, about 27, 50 were rare. But that doesn't work in today's times because if you play with a similar style and if you do similar things, you also won't be able to win any games. So people are forced to take more risks, and they understand that even at the highest level, you need to be able to win games against very strong opposition, which is essentially what you need for an open tournament as well. And that is why it doesn't. This part doesn't concern me.
Just on the future of the Chennai team, what is you want this to become a say Norway where you know it's
Yeah.
8 of the most elite players in the world. Do you want this to be that, or do you want it to be a tournament where more Indian players come play like last year when there were 10 in the challengers? So is it possible for it to be a combination of both?
It has to. It definitely has to be a combination of both. I think in a way we managed to do that already this year to a certain extent. But definitely the Indian players getting a chance to play against some of the best players in the world, I think it's right there at the heart of Chennai Grandmasters. And personally, I also believe that having these kind of players in mix, like someone like Pranesh, brings a lot of excitement to the overall tournament, to the overall playing field. And yeah, so personally, I feel that it adds more intrigue to the tournament. On the other hand, we also want to, go higher and higher in terms of getting the best players in the world and our own best players to continue playing in Chennai.
Yeah. What are the practical problems in terms of making this like an Armageddon followed by Armageddon like now?
There is, so in terms of practical difficulty, I don't think there's anything that cannot be solved. And those kind of interesting format changes are definitely there in our minds as well. So
Because everybody, I was wondering, but everybody praises the tournament because of its unpredictability, because it gives larger weightage to classical rhythm and stuff like that. But nobody is so far able to copy it. So that's why.
yeah, true. I think Norwich has really cracked that part. They have
So why nobody
super
is able to
interesting
copy?
time control. In terms of why we have not followed it, I think we just wanted to stabilize this tournament first. But now we do feel we have a stable footing, and we are definitely open to considering interesting format changes.
Because in general, when of course you cannot answer for others, because others are already strong all tournament. There are other people, but no one is copying. When everybody is agreeing that it's very exciting.
Yeah, no, that's true. No one else is copying, but it's not. We don't have anything against the time control or having something like an Armageddon or any such thing, or even different scoring systems. I think it adds a lot of interest and flavor to the event. But yeah,
But what is your understanding that now it's since 2019 there, I think, even for 6-7 years there that will form. So still no organization is So what is your understanding? I'm not sure.
I have no idea. Maybe some organizers want to keep the traditional format, and it's certainly from an organizational point of view, it's easier to have things in a more traditional format, because in Norway, with the time scrambles and the Armageddon, you have to just put in a little more effort. But on the other hand, it's not that much effort to be a demotivating factor either. But yeah, we are working on a way towards that.
A little bit of a strange question. What's the difference in chess at this moment between a good grandmaster or a great grandmaster?
The difference is it's largely individual. It depends on player to player. Let's say